Now we're live.
The content of this meeting is being sent to a third party. All right, so either I got it or I leave the meeting. No, I'll just leave it. So if I just leave that message up on.
Yeah, come on. Look at this. We are live. We are live.
Good morning.
Woo! Party's here.
Whiz here.
One in Facebook Live.
Hey, everyone.
Where are we?
That's
Yes,
a good
we are.
question. Good question.
Who are we?
That's right.
The
And the
Juggernaut.
question today is a very serious one, and we don't want to make light of it at all. How long does
are
it
we?
take to learn to enjoy and love black coffee?
Well, some of us never. That's why I do herbal teas.
Yeah, what's that scripture?
The only way to drink it.
An-
Only way.
Andy Womack used to say,
We don't-
you can drink any deadly thing and it shall not kill you. What's that scripture? You can, he was not a coffee drinker. And it made me think, is coffee, who made the bean? I mean, in the bean, right?
Well, we don't
that's
shy
really
away from
cool.
tough topics on here, man.
Do you ever think
Go
about
hard.
the first person who did it, who drank coffee? Like, oh, this is good. I think the world's going to love this. Really?
He was selling something. That's who did it.
He's a
He's like,
con man.
I got all these coffee beans. I gotta convince
Gotta
people to
make-
buy them. It tastes good, really.
Well, it puts hair in your chest, so they appeal
Right.
to the manliness side of things.
I love coffee and I love tea, but I like putting a little honey or a little something in it.
Yeah.
A little splash of something. So as I am trying to not cause my pancreas to produce any insulin and use that energy to do a cleanup on other things and to bring restoration in other areas, then if I'm gonna not eat, I cannot also drink things with anything else in it. I could do black coffee or black tea or green tea, but I just can't put any of the good stuff in it. I have to love it and for it to be good as it is, which will be an acquired taste that may take me a few weeks. But I drink so much water, it's still, even though it's not good, it's good because it's something different than water.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did they get to the point, or how did they find out? Because, they don't want kids to drink coffee because it'll stunt their growth. Is that?
Yeah, no, but
Is
that feels like
legend
urban
or-
legend, something.
How did that come about?
Well, apparently the first coffee drinker had a lot of kids. He was a goat herder.
Was he tall? He must have been tall. Maybe he was a giant and he gave his. Yeah.
That was probably his story, and he's sticking to it because
That's right.
he had so much energy. He did not want them to have anything additive that would give them more energy. So that's going to stunt your growth. Like the same thing as don't turn that baby upside down. You're going to cause their liver to flip.
Their liver to flip.
Have you
I
ever
never
heard that?
That's awesome.
I've never heard
No,
that
never
one.
heard that one.
Okay, so
Their
apparently
liver turned
coffee
upside down. Stop.
came from Ethiopia about 800 years after Christ. So 800 AD. There's a legend though. It's obviously not verifiable. There wasn't Snopes back then, but Kaldi, this is on the Ethiopian plateau, and a goat herder named Kaldi first discovered the potential. And he noticed that after eating the berries from a certain tree, his goats became so energetic that they did not want to sleep at night. And he
That's
reported
awesome.
his findings to the abbot of the local monastery. Of course, the church is involved. Coffee in the lobby.
To be involved, yes.
who made a drink with the berries and found that it kept him alert through the long hours of evening prayer. What?
Yeah, Vesper.
That is
Vespers.
so awesome. Yes.
The abbot shared his discovery with the other monks of the monastery, and knowledge of the energizing berries began to spread.
Genius. Genius.
Prayer is so boring at night. We need coffee to keep us awake.
Can't wait to not rest and not shut my brain off. This is going to be terrific.
Hey, man. So somebody struggling to stay awake during meditation had to get juiced.
Oh yeah. Gotta get juiced.
Oh, that's so good.
So it's a holy drink. There you go.
Yeah. Enjoy your coffee.
Maybe that's when Hebrews was really written.
Right?
I know that's been a play on words for quite a while, but Hebrews, we never have, some people think it's Paul, but some people don't think it's Paul. So we don't know who really wrote it. So maybe it's one of those guys.
Hebrews.
I wonder if there was an energy drink before coffee. I would imagine there was plenty.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we know Jesus turned the water into wine. I'm sure that brought a lot of energy.
Yeah, tea.
Or
Never
some
mind.
real peace to the the wedding.
I guess tea is older than coffee.
Probably.
Yeah. That's right, Deanna. It's called tea.
Right? And what's that root? Oh, I can't think of the name of it. The root that you dig up and you make tea out of it.
Again, like, who would do that? Who would think of that? There's lots of roots in my yard. I've never wondered what they taste like in boiling water. I mean, granted, I don't need to, right? So I don't have like a scarcity of things to make with water, but you're talking about Nephilim giving the technology to man, fire and other things. Is that where some of this stuff came from? Like, hey, that root over there. Like, yeah, it's in the ground.
That's the
Dig it
grass.
up.
That's what I'm trying
Dig
to
it
say.
Dig it up and shave it down and boil it in some water. It's awesome. You'd be like, what?
Right.
What's wrong with the water here? The whole river's full of it. I don't need to.
I know.
What's the point?
Trust me, you'll like it.
It's worth it, right?
Look at, give it a Frank. Frank will do it. Give it a Frankie first. Let him
Frank
try
will do
it.
it. Right?
But how did they
Frankie.
know then? Obviously, then that means that heaven, they're drinking tea, they're drinking coffee, because that's where everything came from. Especially that.
So they knew that
Or somehow they've twisted
so
it.
They knew biology and chemistry.
Yeah, I know.
They knew the physical makeup of creation. Yeah, eat this, don't eat that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe someone that was going in and out of dimensions as they were up there realized that as they were sitting in Wisdom's house, she was having this amazing coffee or this amazing sassafras tea.
drink.
And they're like, what is that?
So
You
this
went
is
to
where the
heaven?
pinky up come from then? All right, Wisdom. Everybody pinky up.
Yeah.
And
you
you
think it's
don't
good
need
with
a
water?
whole cup. All you need is a little sip.
That's right. You think that's good with water? Why don't you set fire to this and just stand close to it? I'll talk to you later.
Hey,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the legend of tea predates coffee by almost 3,500 years. There's just a little bit of time
they were drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, how did they know anything? How did they know all of the herbal medications? How did they know that frankincense would be such a powerful essential oil?
Right.
Or
Ooh.
or the herbs.
Yep.
Rosemary.
2,500 years
How we
was about the
came
time of Tower of
across
Babel.
Such a
Actually.
natural healer. But then again, how do we know anything, right? I mean,
Well, yeah,
it's
and
not
then
just
and
that.
then
How
a
do
lot
we
of
know-
the knowledge was pre-flood. You know, are places like Göbekli Tepe an outlier that survived to today, but there were a lot more tablets, carvings, you know, whatever that survived pre-flood. But then, you know, how did they figure it out before then? So they had to have some kind of, you know,
Thou shalt not
knowledge.
covet your neighbor's coffee plant.
Right. Well, and apparently tea was just an accident. The legend is they were just boiling drinking water, and some leaves blew in.
Oh,
Whose
you
job
gotta
was
be
it to watch the
kidding.
water, man?
Ah, that's awesome. Ah, so
It's probably was one big barrel and it just fell down into the bottom and started
yeah.
Sounds like a
Speaking.
16-year-old trying to excuse a bong. No, it's a lamp. It's a lamp, Mom. It's just a lamp. Yeah, the tea leaves just blew in. I don't know how they got there. It
That's
must have
right.
been the wind.
One of the kids were probably playing and just said, "Hey, let's put these in. See what it."
Right? Yeah. That's fascinating. So where did a lot of our knowledge come from? And is that a bad thing? Why did the Nephilim give metallurgy? Like, you know, that sounds like a pretty good idea. I mean, I like metallurgy. I'm glad this cup exists. It's not a problem. So they gave them good stuff, farming and implements and all that. But then also you can make stuff to hit people with.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. You talked, I went back to Enoch, Book of Enoch, and talked about the sons of God coming down and teaching witchcraft and spells and medicinal herbal drug stuff as part of the witchcraft. So you wonder, how much of the stuff was taught to them by some other being.
Yep.
Yeah.
For those who think that the Book of Enoch was legit, and maybe not for those who have written it off as just some fantastical.
Well, for those who think the New Testament is
Non-canonical-
legit.
You mean as its form, in its written form?
None of
According to the
those
Nicene Creed.
none of our books hold up to that challenge. You know, well, you think that's legit. Well, okay.
I was thinking about that when I said, how do we know what we know? How did we learn what we know now? How did it come about? But a lot of what we know now, we're finding isn't even the truth. There's a higher truth.
Or at
So
least it's
it's
questionable.
revealed.
It's not as lock solid as we thought. Doesn't mean it's
Right.
wrong. Doesn't mean it's incorrect, inaccurate, or illegitimate. It just means it takes a little bit of faith, and that's okay. Questioning is not denying, and that is probably a hang up to get over. Questioning isn't denying. It's
And the
okay.
number one is taking it all back to Yahweh, we found, instead of depending on man, depending on anyone to tell us and teach us what to know, that we get into relationship, that we can go back to Yahweh, our creator, and allow him to tell us what is truth and to reveal to us no matter what that looks like. Because lots of times it is the truth is something that we have to let go and get out of our box to believe because
Yep.
we have been so programmed to believe it to be a certain thing.
Yep. And that's not synonymous. Like questioning what you've been told and questioning the source that you've told was as accurate and infallible is not the same as man doing what is right in their own eyes. Like the opposite of Yeshua said, I'm here for people who are being taught by the Father directly. And the opposite of that is people doing things that are right in their own eyes. No relationship. Right? Like forget verifying your source material. Like that's the difference.
Evil.
Yeah.
Eating of the
Well,
wrong.
I've been thinking about. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've been chewing on the word truth because it's been thrown around a lot in this day and age, right?
A
Everybody's
bit.
searching for truth, and and I really started thinking of truth in the idea of reality. Truth is what can be right. According to what Paul's talking about, the Greeks, the word that he used for truth is really about what can be verified, right? And most stuff can't be verified that we say is true in the world by our own senses, by our own interactive body with the realm around us. We can't really verify ourselves. So we move it out of the context of truth that's verifiable to just, I believe it's true because someone told me it's true. But the idea of reality in the sense of like when Christ says, I am the truth, the way, and the life, that truth is he's saying, I am the reality. I am the real reality. I am the only reality worth living in. Which means to say that there are other truths and other realities that do exist. Everybody lives in a reality that they frame up based on their belief systems, based on what they call truth. And it's basically been the age of man that's been contradicting one another, saying, no, this is reality. No, this is reality. No, this is reality. And it's just been argumentative. And I'm discovering that someone to call their truth their reality is actually a real thing. It's their reality. They've chosen to live in that realm, and that truth is real to them, very much so. And all we can do is present our reality to somebody else, and they are then either they just reject it or they let that reality crash into their own, and then they begin to assimilate. And I think all of our realities have just been a over time assimilation of other realities that have crashed into our reality and said, no, this is something you might want to take into yours. And we, you know what? Based on my current reality and the experience I'm having, I'd rather have that reality. And so we assimilate it into our worldview, into our belief system, into our systems, body, spirit, and soul, and begin to incorporate that into our current. And we metamorphose into a different reality. That's just basically what we're saying, is that Christ came into our reality, crashed into it with his life, his truth, his reality, his way, and said, come live in this different reality. And we said yes, because we didn't like the current one we had, right? That's about all we can do with anybody else as sovereign beings, is to say, hey, I'm living in a different reality and a different truth, and I think it's better. And you can leave it or take it or leave it. It's up to you. And and they will onboard and assimilate what they feel is valuable, or they'll reject it outright. But beyond that, we can't force people to come live in our reality. And I think that's the struggle, is we think we can. I think that's the mindset of, and that's why we get into wars and we get in fights, conflicts, because we think we can force people to live in our reality. And it may work for a season, but eventually it doesn't. It breaks apart because it hasn't been assimilated. And I think there's a different way of going about it. You know, how do we bring people on board to what we think is the best reality ever? Christ, right? And the only way to do that, I think, is through what we see in Christ, is just live it, talk about it, live it. Don't force it on people. Just say, hey, this is the reality. These are my truths. It seems to be working pretty good right now. I'll check in with me in a year and we'll see where we're at, where that reality has morphed as I've assimilated new revelation. And I think that's the difficulty of dogmatic doctrines, because of those older realities have been crashed upon for the past centuries. And some things that we had considered as being true realities are now at question. They're the letters that Paul wrote were letters. They were simple communication. It was If it was today, he would have sent an email. And 100 years from now, someone will take those emails and write a book and say, this is doctrine, this is canon. No, it was just an email that I was talking to this group of people who needed some help in the moment,
Yep. Come on.
right? And there are principles, yeah, there are principles in life that have been drawn from them, but the religious side of it has taken it and packaged it as the only reality that one could have. Well, shoot, I better go live in a toga then and live as Paul lived, because that's the reality that's only acceptable in church today. Well, that would be silly, right? So we have to remember the origin and the purpose of the scriptures as they were given, and not forget the reality of, and the breaking and crashing of the reality that existed at that time. If Christ was at such a time as this, where when he crashed in with his reality, it was specifically the best time in line in the history of mankind for him to come. There is other revelation that he intended to crash into reality later in the timeline of man, that was a mystery still, even to the apostles, right?
Mhm.
So an increasing crashing in of Yahweh's realities over a timeline, we're seeing a different time stamp of his reality crashing in, which means we should expect new revelations and understandings to crash into our realities that weren't addressed verbatim in Paul's time,
Yeah.
right?
Wouldn't
So
it be cool if, and I know this is going to get people, but if we had volumes of the Bible, like, okay, this was this, now this, now this, now we're on the sixth volume and everything's current, so you're not repeating. So everything is like, like we have the, let's just go to the Narnia series, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Then you have that, then you have that, then you have that, then you have that. Instead of totally just basing all our truths, which this is good, but we're basing all our truths, all our belief systems on a Bible that was written, 2000 plus years ago. And we can't discount the fact that all the prophetic words or the prophecies and everything came to pass. So all that has been verified through time and seasons. So we can't discount the fact that it's just another volume. No, it is the foundation of it. But at the same time, there's more than 66 books in the Bible. Revelation, is the end. But no, okay, so now we got part two, another 69 or however many books, and then we go from there. And so now we're in the, 2024. What does the volume look like?
right.
The stories are definitely different. The time's different. We're in a
Language.
total different age, and we're communicating way differently. Now we're into a lot more sounds and frequencies, and the health and everything, and so those need to be put in this biblical deal. So there's a lot of how do you do that without straying from your time? How do you do that without straying from your belief system, your total truth? That's what triggers people.
You mean how do we, like, how would we canonize
Yeah,
in real
well,
time?
yeah, but how do you go? Okay, I mean, people are always going to stick to the Bible, the King James version or whatever it is. But how? Because that's our truth. That's where everything that we came. That's my religious background. That's where everything came from. That's where
Yep.
That's the beginning of the story, the
Yes.
beginning of our story, the beginning of
Right.
the realms of Earth, and and all that. So how do we get from there to where we're at without?
Well, I think the reality is that what Christ spoke and did is universal. It's
Yes.
timeless.
Yes.
So it can transcend um, climates and transcend cultural shifts. It can transcend
Yeah.
languages. It transcends above all of that stuff. So I think what we're really experiencing here isn't that we've got such new realities, is that we're taking the cataracts off the religious eyes of the church that have come over time as it's gotten older and crusty, and the doctrines and religions begin to put scales upon the eyes of the believers. Yahweh breaks in with a reminder revelation saying, remember who my son is.
Mhm.
Remember who you are. Remember what the universal truth is exhibited in his life. And as he breaks in, what seems to us in a new generation's new revelation is really the removing of cataracts of a forgotten understanding and lifestyle. Because what we're talking about, big on our plate is sonship. Well, that's not new. I mean, Paul
Right.
wrote about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's going back and removing the scales of religiosity that have interpreted it in such a way that keeps us blinded to what it means to be a son and the literal experience of sonship in the Father's house, right? So to us, it's brand new because it wasn't taught to us from the previous generations. It's crashing in as we are engaging in relationship, and Father saying, let me remove these scales that religions put on you and see it as it was intended, as it was originally written upon the heart, upon the blueprint of Christ. So we use different language. We're returning, we're remembering who we really were, because over time, as the church aged, it got decrepit in its thinking, and the religious stiffness kicked in, and doctrines that caused scales, and for whatever reason, I mean, we can list out all the different ailments and reasons why the church went the way it did over the past 2, 3, 4, 500 years in its belief system, right? And why it structured what it did. We didn't live in those days. We don't know the pressures. We don't know what the Dark Ages did to the church. We don't know the traumas in detail, right? All we know
Right.
is history books. Whoever had experienced it wrote down their experience again and said, this is what we did. And so we had to do this,
Yep.
right? So we don't know all the details, but we know that we've lost and we've gotten blinded a little bit, maybe a lot, in who we're intended through the model and blueprint of Christ. And now we're just rediscovering those realities
Mhm.
as they always were, the original intention. And we're letting them crash into our old religious mindsets and begin to remove the cataracts so we can see ourselves as we intended.
Yeah.
And for us, it is brand new and it is liberating and it's freeing. And for others who have clung to the safety net of guidelines and doctrines and protocols, it's a little scary. And so for I think, how do we adjust and move forward, and how do we catalog? I think we keep it fluid. I think we continue to write letters like Paul did. We
Yeah.
continue to write in our day what we know, and we are careful not to turn it into another form of religion, right? I mean, this is, I think, the key of ATS is why, when we were talking about this with our friend yesterday, Paul and I, that, well, I was talking about it, about ATS being like water. We are focused on relationship. We're not focused on form. Form is only necessary for the moment. The container will shift and change according to the seasons as they change. But relationships and with each other in the house of our Father, the familial connectivity that we have with one another and with our Father, brother, with the Spirit, those remain fluid. This is why Paul says, I am a Roman to Romans and I am Jew to Jews. Who I need to be in the moment. I form into the container so that I can be an expression for those in their paradigm. So I can crash in with my reality in a way that's digestible for the moment. But I am not You know, Paul doesn't walk around, not Paul here with us, but Paul and Paul the apostle doesn't walk around and say, I'm Paul the apostle in heaven, does he? He doesn't walk around. I don't think he does. I don't think that, I think, remember, it supersedes our thinking, but I think that he walks around with titles, because that was a form and function for what he was doing in the moment. We carry form and function as a help, but when it gets in the way, it damages the testimony of the sons in the earth. And so we need to remain fluid in our realities and our demonstration of the current reality as it is manifested in the current structure and form, but be willing to put off the form and for a new form that is necessary for the moment, whether it be a different language. I'm not going to go to African speaking English, well, because I don't know African, I guess I have to, but I'm required to use a different format, which is an interpreter, right? Wherever I am in time and season, in and out of season, I can move as a son into any form necessary to produce the glory that needs to be manifested. But I'm not the form. I'm something other than, and I'm fluid like water, so that I can do and be and have my movement regardless of where I am.
Good. Like
That is, I think, the way forward. And I think that is the way forward for sonship specifically, as in Romans, talks about that 8:19. Creation is waiting for the sonship. That's not waiting for another form of religion that's better than the last one. Not looking for the restoring of the temple. It's looking for the restoration of the sons who are moving about like as Christ said, they're like the wind. They move to and fro. We don't know when they come, but they show up and they do what they need to do, and then they move on. You can't contain the wind in any form, but it can blow into a form and communicate in it, but move on.
So good.
So I think that's, as difficult as that is to live the day in, day out, because man likes structure, don't we? I mean, we love our forms and protocols and methodologies to make sense of our reality. But we have to hold it so loosely. Otherwise, we get left behind with the last form, because it's no longer useful for the, I mean, we talk about the generations. Millennials are casting off the form of religion. They're casting off the form of systems. The Xers, the Gen Zs are for casting off its predecessor forms. They're looking for new forms because it's not useful anymore. And we as a people of Yahweh's house have to understand that and move accordingly so that we are relevant. I hate to use that word because it's kind of become watered down in certain church circles, to be relevant to society. Well, there is truth to it. We need to be relevant to the current cultures, but we don't necessarily have to become that relevancy, that culture.
Yep.
We just know how to move in and out of it as necessary, but we're not beholden to it. And I guess that is, how do we learn the culture of heaven, which is universally spans the timeline? What is Father's relevant culture that has no end, no change? And begin to blend into that and let that crash into people's realities as we live. And be like what they said about Paul. Who are these people that turn the world upside down? Their reality as sons crashed in to the reality of the current forms and disrupted them. They were disruptors. And we are called to be disruptors as sons, to cause a shift that disrupts all the realities below the sun with the reality, Christ, right? The way, the truth, and saying, hey, we have a reality that we're going to crash in on you. And you can't hold us down. You're not going to pin us down. Today we say this, but tomorrow, based on the new norms, the new culture, new forms, we're going to be moving this way. We don't know where we're going to blow, but we're going to blow. So
I
there
was
you go.
listening.
Form gets in the way of relationship. It may start it, it may help facilitate it, but is it relationship if it's just form? I mean, how do you know if it's just form?
But isn't family a form?
Yeah, but it starts that way,
Right.
but it develops, or it's not relationship.
Exactly.
If it stays form, it's just form. I mean, relationship can exist within it, but it's always going to push.
Yeah, I call
Sometimes
it functional
relationship is
relationships.
simply almost defined by the way it pushes against the forms.
Yeah.
Right. I think functional relationships, at least that's the term I use for when the form supersedes the relationship.
Yeah.
Because when the form is preeminent over relationship, and that form then disintegrates, as it will always entropy, then the relationship, because it's being superseded by the form, also suffers.
Oh yeah.
And then one would argue, was it ever a real relationship? Well, yeah, it was, but it
Right.
only could exist within the form. And when the form degraded and fell apart, so did the relationship. So
It seems
I see a
natural.
shift where we move away from functional relationships to relationships that function
Mm-hmm.
in a healthy manner, where the relationships are preeminent, right? And then over in a season, those relationships are the carrier wave, you might say, for communicating something in time and season. But when that message is no longer necessary, well, the carrier wave still is there and still going on. And then maybe there's a new message that comes along. But the carrier wave never disappears. Just what it's carrying changes over time. So the form and function changes, but the relationships remain. That, I think, is what we need to do, see happen in churches. Flip-flop. We don't function together and have relationship. We have relationship together and then we function together. That's what family really is,
Yes.
right? And when a family does the opposite, what happens? You have dysfunction. Because, hey, I got to get these things done, kiddos, and you're in my way and I can't get them done. You're not working with the function of this house. If you have kids, you know that will always break up, always fall apart. They're very good about messing up function. As Chris Blackby says, they will poop on the floor and push over the vase and then expect a hug. That's
Yeah.
not the function of discipline and correction. Well, sorry,
Yep.
but kids are very good about messing up the form. And that is evident in my house.
Yeah.
And we have decided to flip and flop that relationship over function, and things start to flow better and make more sense and have a better evaluation system than the other.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah, man.
that's
That's a
the way it
valid
should
question
be.
for a kid, right? I mean, I tell my daughter she's beautiful. Well, Dad, are you saying that because you're my dad, and that's what you're supposed to say, or am I really beautiful? Do you really love me, or do you love me because you're supposed to? Can't imagine that's an uncommon question to wonder. Are you here in my life because of the form, or because you want to be? And it matters. I mean, the fact that you're there even for the form says something. That's significant. Don't discount it, right? You don't have to follow the form. You could have said "F it" and I'm out, but you're still here, and it's more than just a form. That's a treasure.
Yep.
Uh-oh, we lost Tina. Yeah, that's a treasure for a kid. You're here not just because you're supposed to be. It's significant that you are, but you want to be. I imagine that's what carries a relationship past into adulthood. And it
Yeah.
matters. It's a significant family dynamic for a kid to feel like you weren't just, it wasn't just duty.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Yeshua. He's not here because of just the function, but it is significant. Don't discount it. It's a big deal. But yeah, Even if he didn't have to, he'd want to.
Well, in the reverse, right? You say duty. A lot of church is duty oriented,
Yeah.
right? So my relationship with my father in that context is I have a duty and a responsibility to my father, my Lord, and my King to perform a certain way. And when that duty is disrupted or messes up, then we feel like our relationship suffers.
Hmm.
And that's again function over relationship, form of relationship. What happens if Yahweh says, I don't want you to do that duty anymore? What happens? Well, I don't know how to relate with you anymore.
Yeah.
You know, think about ministers who have given their lives to ministry and then Yahweh removes them from it. They have to reinvent if they haven't built a relationship with him, they have to reinvent their relationship. They have to figure out, oh my gosh, what am I to do? Because they have associated their relationship with a performance, a function. Children will grow that up too. They'll with their father, their mother, they will, if in a dysfunctional setting, will associate the health of their relationship based on the performance of the duty, whether they did it well or didn't do it well.
Yes.
And if they perceive that they've failed in their duties as a son or a daughter, then they will perceive, and their reality will be is I am messed up and my relationship with my father is messed up. They don't love me. They don't like me. All internalized. And they go through the years that way. And
I've seen that in my own life.
Yep.
My
Me
own
too.
that
criticism
is
of my
how we,
daughter and my criticism of myself as a father, and I associate that with the relationship with my daughter.
and that's the way we see that many of people in the church, our
Yep.
brothers and sisters in the church, associate their relationship with their father with a performance of a duty and a function. And so they struggle with their father relationship, their health, their brother sister relationship, because it's all based out of this function. And then when they get removed from it, then they really struggle, and then they begin to doubt whether their relationship was real in the first place. And you
Dude,
see those fall away because of it.
that's
So
my
the
that's my story.
we have to replace function with relationship for a season. There has to be a detoxing of this duty bound mindset to embrace just being. You know what? Flipping, don't evangelize, don't pray, don't read the Bible, don't do anything that's duty related. Just take a walk, get up late, go to bed late, just build relationship, rediscover what it means to have a relationship with someone who requires nothing of you in this moment, and find out what that's like. Rediscover what it means to just have love, be loved, and enjoy each other's presence. And when that begins to weed out the old form and function, then you'll rediscover what it really means to labor and function for that one. Then a labor of function and form is a joy because it's born out of a relational dynamic. And your performance and your evaluation isn't built on how you succeed or don't succeed in that function. It's based on simply the acceptance and the surrounding embrace of that relationship.
And you find
That
truth.
is it, right? And that has to happen for every believer. It has to, in order for maturity to occur, and in order for Ephesians 2 to actually occur, Ephesians 2, 3, 4, the whole book to occur where you become in the likeness of our older brother, you can't avoid that journey because that's the way he lives. That's the way he exists. He exists primarily as a son, first and foremost. And
Yes.
out of it, he then performs kingship and savior
Yep.
and Lord and master.
Mm-hmm.
But his primary place is sonship.
Yep.
And matter of fact, when all things are brought together and restored, what is he going to do? Well, he's going to turn around and hand all that authority back over to the Father. Say, hey, I did what I did. I performed the function of Savior. I'm giving it all back to you. I'm going to go back into just enjoying the sonship. Now I'm generalizing a little bit, but that is the overarching idea, that he's performing a function in a time span in order to recover what he was sent to do, to perform it. But that is his ministry in the moment. He will then put it off and give it all over back to the Father. And then with his brothers and sisters in his enfold and embrace, we are now sons. And we have to remember that as an overarching idea. But the body of Christ has to go through, every individual has to go through the laying down of function, because the culture that we've grown up in is still function oriented. Business, government, education, it's all function over relationship. Even though they try hard to build relationship, once those functions and systems break down, no one sticks around, because there wasn't really a relationship outside of that function. So in a culture where you're grown up into that, and you're fed a daily diet of this, and the way you think and your paradigm is built around it, you're going to bring that into your religion, into your belief system. And that has to be weeded out. And so the way forward, I think, for the church is everybody's going to have to go through this place of putting down duty and responsibility. Pick up
Well, it seems
relationship
inevitable in an age
before.
of reason. I mean, that it just seems that's logical. In an age of reason, if you elevate reason and totally disregard meaning, that scenario is inevitable.
What's
It even
happening,
makes
right?
sense. It even
And then
makes sense.
generations are passing off the systems. They're saying, forget it. And the system says, you need to do this. And they say, what? Do what? Oh yeah, make me. And they cast it off. They cast off the restraint, right? They cast off their forefathers' protocols and methodology to say, I'm going to find a new way, because you haven't fixed the world with yours, right? And that's culture. That's generations changing without even just considering the spiritual aspect of it. You know, capitalism isn't working. You know, communism isn't working. It doesn't matter. You pick a system and there's a generation that says,
Pick your
screw
ism.
that. That's not going to happen. It's not working. I'm not going to continue in that journey. And so
Relationism.
man continues to reinvent a new form of function, because there is a deeper core issue that we're talking about, the relational aspect that hasn't been answered properly and hasn't been manifested properly. Thus, the need for sonship, thus, the need for the sons of God to restore creation, to bring it back, to remind creation and humanity, first and foremost, who they are in relationship.
Well, without relationship, any question to the form is unnerving and threatening. I mean, no wonder people go to violence because someone believes something different than them. It's threatening because are you really sure? Unless your belief structure is no, go take out the guys who disagree with you. That's ridiculous, but it exists obviously.
Right.
But I even see it now. Like when earlier when you mentioned Romans is just a letter, like I felt my gut pull. That evoked a visceral reaction, and I'm like, what? That's weird. But it's still there. Like there's like it's just a letter. Oh, wait. Is there a caveat to that? Like, can we soften that a little bit? No, it's okay. But if you said Yeshua's not real, okay, it's like saying water's not wet. I found my truth. Like that's my truth. I don't have to question that. It's not a belief anymore. It's a no. I know that.
Right.
I know that. That's a treasure. You can't take that from me. You can't disprove it, deny it, undo it. Find a new scroll that disagrees with it.
Well, and
Whatever.
for me, it can be analytical at times, right? In a logical sense. And this kind of follows after my dad, physical dad, earthly dad. It still don't make sense. It's the only reality that makes sense. And I mean, even though it doesn't make sense for people, for me, in just studying world religions, studying systems, just observing humankind, studying human nature, it's the only one that has a viable sense because everything else entropy into destruction eventually. It's the only system, the only structure, the only form of reality that seems to have no destructive end. Only life, only increase, only glory. Everything else has a entropied aspect to it that just careens into chaos eventually. And honestly, I think my father said that it was the only one that was the least a bit of work. Some required me to climb a mountain. Others required me to go live in a hole in the ground somewhere for the rest of my life. You know, so maybe there's a little bit of selfishness. I mean, that's too much work. This is the only one that all I have to do is just believe. You know, so it for my reality, it just makes sense to continue this and to eschew relationship for this universal entity that creates us that has no relational connection to us. It just is and just does things. Even that's like, I don't even want to believe that because I need relation as a being. I need relational connectivity to the things that make me tick, the things that make me grow and have my being. And if someone say, well, you can't have a relationship with God, he's too far above you. And I'm like, well, then I don't want relationship with that God. If anything that I've learned is humans required connectivity to the world around it and the one that created it and with each other. If not, we fall apart. It is built into our DNA to have community, to have relationship. And anything that eschews that will cause any individual that does that, rejects that, will eventually entropy into chaos and will then basically die. We cannot live outside of community. We have to have community in order to ascend, in order to become what we're supposed to be as a species. No individual, and this is why I think we haven't as a community seen more people ascending in enlightenment because they're trying to do it on their own. And I'm realizing the reality of transcendedness or transfiguration or moving into the next stage of mankind is not going to be attained by one individual alone and say, look, this is the way, follow me. It's going to be discovered in community because the community is going to reveal it as a whole. It'll percolate together and then we'll step into that reality. That's why I think we aren't seeing it. That's why people talk about it at length, because we got to get the community bubbling together and coming to the same level until we can brim and cross over that threshold together. And it will be, maybe it will be a popcorn, you know, maybe pop a popcorn, or one or two kernels will pop sooner. They're more mature, you know, they're ahead of the curve. But eventually, then you start getting a pop off where it's like you can't see who's popping off at any time. They're all popping at the same time, and you just get inundated. I think we'll have the percolation, but the reality is they are just premature. The whole comes because the whole is bubbling up. They're all heating up together. And I think the sons of God will do the same. Is that we'll have pop-offs, but the reality is you're not going to see the fullness of sonship in the earth until the community as a whole has risen into a revelation level together where the temperature is pretty much well established across the group, the community. And at that time, you'll have a pop-off. And it won't be just this one man standing on a rock somewhere who's walking in signs and wonders. It will be across the globe where it's just popcorn. And you just like, it's happening. It's brimming over, and the body, the sons of God, are manifesting in the earth. So the community is important. We're built like that. We're designed like that. And to take that and remove that from us, I think, one, is impossible because it's woven in the fabric of mankind as a species. It was purposely and poured, designed into us when he breathed, when Yahweh breathed, because he wanted relationship. He wanted community. That's why he created man, not just to have some meat source, according to some people, not to have some people to lord over, because he felt insecure and needed something else to rule. He desired family. That's why he initiated it at the beginning and why it still continues to exist no matter what systems try to push it out and destroy it.
Family matters.
It cannot go away because it's woven into the framework of our very species. So whenever someone talks about removing that, I just say, well, that's impossible, but I'm not even going to go down that road with you because it's not even feasible for who we're supposed to become, who I'm supposed to become. Relationship is center stage to everything we do, everything we say, everything we think. So it's best just to get on with the program and figure out how to heal your relationships, starting with the one who created you. And then you'll start to see become who you're supposed to be in community.
Good.
I was listening to Craig Wells a little bit this morning because I love that he had made a statement that that we are the mystery. And
Reveal.
and so I like that. I like that he was talking about you are the mystery. And he began to say that because we are in Christ and Christ is in us, and we're in Yahweh and we're a Trinity within each other, we need to be in relationship. We need to know who we are by going into relationship with that first. It's not about all the other stuff. We can lay everything down until we figure out relationship with them. And in figuring out relationship with the Trinity, with our Creator and with our Savior and our brother, and us being family together, when we're in relationship, we will learn and know who we are. We will figure out who we are, and that will show us who we are, and that we will begin to look like our brother. The more we hang with our brother and we're in relationship with our brother, we begin to look like him as he is. So are we in this world now. And that is so true, that for us to progress further, we have to stop trying to do, trying to be, trying to whatever we're doing, and go back to our first love and learn to love, learn him. And as we learn all of those things, it will pour out of us, and we will be able to love not only them more, but those around us more. It will cause us to become love like our Creator. And that was just very deep for me and made me stop and think. And I think it kind of goes with what we're talking about here today.
Yep. Isn't that the whole purpose
Yeah.
of wheels within wheels within wheels? That's really what we become. Wheels within wheels within wheels is they operate together, go together wherever, because wheels within wheels within wheels, if you try to pull apart, it doesn't work. After a while, it becomes friction and then things fall apart. But if we're wheels within wheels within wheels, and we're the eyes and eyes and eyes and eyes, like the beans, that's really, it's just, even though there's eyes and eyes and eyes, there's still a single focus, still a single purpose, relation. You have to have
Yeah.
relationship.
Love within love within love within love.
Yes, exactly.
Love within love within love within love.
Mm-hmm.
Love big, love big.
Yep.
It's not complicated.
That's right.
So good, guys. This was awesome. I love you
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Me
All
too,
right.
man.
Love you too. Love.
And
So thanks, everybody, for jumping on.
And know today that you are the mystery. You are mystery.
Keep
Until
loving
next
big.
Thursday, then. Yep.
Yep.
Love you all soon.
Bye.
Shalom.
Bye. Shalom.